within 48 hours, you're going to have a dream.
Welcome to the Blue Door Playbook, a podcast for the soul, featuring the work and wisdom of archetypal psychotherapist Timothy Tate. I'm your host, Putter Brown. Episode 7, Ego, Persona, and Character. All right, welcome.
Good to be with you, Putter Brown.
Yeah. It's good to be with you, Timothy Tate. Today, help me understand the word ego. Help me understand what the hell people mean.
People don't know what they mean.
They don't.
Yeah, let's start with that, you bet. You know, it's a term that is applied to so many different things, like the last time we talked, when we talked about the cliche use of you're so bipolar, or you're so OCD, or he has such a big ego. So I defer to Carl Jung's conception of what the ego is. And it's not this kind of big ego that we associate with the term. That would be persona, and we'll get there today. By ego, he meant it's a fundamental cornerstone of the stability of the individual's psyche. It's not good, it's not bad. It simply is, I think cornerstone is the right word for that. It sets the foundation for all that will be incorporated in a person's experience, as you know, as a father to a young child, watching her grasp and correlate and integrate at her own way and pace the experiences she's having. We would trust that her ego has been established, which is the first developmental stage in some ways to go down, is to have that intact ego. And I don't know how many years you might say from birth to 4 or 5, but something that fresh and new and early in the development. And if that ego is in place, and how does that happen? Well, it happens with a stable environment. It happens with respect. It happens with not having baby talk. Mm-hmm. It happens with parents understanding the integrity and autonomy of this little psyche and providing a safe environment for the establishment of that cornerstone. You know, when bricklayers or stonemasons put the cornerstone in place, it is a time-consuming effort to make sure that it's going to be able to hold what's built upon it. And so it is with the ego. If we don't have a solid foundation with the ego, then the rest of our life journey is in some way handicapped.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's up to the parents to set the cornerstone, or the caregivers?
Yep.
And what kind of things happen when the parents or the caregivers are unstable or troubled?
Yeah.
What happens to the cornerstone?
Yeah, it's cracked.
It's cracked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, it'll be, more limestone than granite, a fractured material. And I think that we do our best as parents, given us some space, some latitude about parents being well-intentioned with their children, The abusive parent is a whole nother story. We won't go there. But yeah, the parent's responsibility, and in a fractured home, is, and I don't think we understand that, you don't get a second chance at this foundation. It happens, it's starting to be set, of course, in utero. So how the infant, how the fetus in the environment is treated without spikes of adrenaline and drama in the mother's endocrine system and hormonal system. It starts from conception, this building of this cornerstone. And then upon birth and how that experience went and all those variables shape the size and consistency of that ego, which is in place by, I don't even want to say a number, but something like 3 or 4 latest. And then we have the other forms of expression and integration and containment, the persona and the character piece that we'll talk about, has a chance to be a stable structure and not a structure that for the rest of their life is compensating for not having an intact ego. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So out there in the world, you read about you need to kill your ego or death.
Mm-hmm.
People use words like annihilate.
Right.
And they're off because they're not saying death to your cornerstone.
Right.
They're missing the boat, or they're off a little.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, you're right. It's, kill the ego, death to the ego. And I understand that as an important attempt to deconstruct or remove, which I don't think is possible, but let's say deconstruct or have some consciousness about the persona, which is what people are confusing to the ego. If we use this train of thought, this belief we're talking about. The ego in this way is a neutral phenomena. It's simply, as I'm saying, the bedrock. But popular psychology and all the other things that go with, well, not half-baked, but I'll say it, ideas about this mystery of the human experience, use the ego, kill the ego when it is, in my mind, transcending the persona.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The bedrock piece, you use the word neutral. And Jung's saying and you're saying that it's not the problem.
Right. It's simply not the problem. It's, if we understand it as we're talking about, it's essential. And the care that is needed to ensure that that cornerstone is laid correctly rests solely on the parents and caregivers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And you're saying that cornerstone is set somewhere 0 to 4 or 5, 0 to 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that zone.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, with the cornerstone set in limestone or granite, then you move into what's the next phase or the next work.
Yep. The persona then.
Mm.
So the persona is, let's back up a minute. So we have this idea of the neutral cornerstone of the ego. And then we have all the input that a child, an infant, is receiving about what's good, normal, and natural, and appropriate. And this is where it gets all goofed up. That socialization process, which is what the persona is. Building the persona is a journey that runs simultaneous to the ego in the origin of that persona, but in the wake of that cornerstone placement, over the next 8 to 9 years, the persona is kind of in place by 8 or 9 years old. And if we understand the persona as a protection against feeling inadequate, then we understand the intense value of the identifying with the persona as who you are. But actually, it's not at all who you are, the who. It is the individual's way of compensating for a sense of inadequacy, for their own shame, which is a subject we could get lost in for days. Mm-hmm. That, in my mind, without getting biblical, but that's the original sin to me, is to somehow, through the needs of the parents and their own unfinished business or their own needs to have a really special, normal, great, outstanding kid, all that is put on the child as what might be inadequacy. You're not good enough, teamed up with the school system and the culture's ideas of normal. The little kid is trying to figure out how to navigate all the input they're getting. And in that navigation, they construct a persona to protect themselves, not their ego, but protect themselves from a kind of instability and disequilibrium that comes with negotiating all of this that your daughter is smack in the middle of.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Where does this word persona come from?
Yeah. It's a Latin term, persona. And so it means mask. And we still use this term in a number of ways. Persona non grata is a term that we use. An individual who has lost favor, he's not welcome. Mm-hmm. But the persona dramatis, what an actor, that's what an actor is. They create a persona to go on stage, to be in film. And the more successful they are with inhabiting that persona for their role in that movie, the more compelling that performance is. And so persona is what a person puts on to play a specific role in the context of a drama, which one can kind of extrapolate, could be the drama of life. So the persona's a protection, but it's a protection of a lie that we believe as children that somehow we're not good enough.
And that's the worst feeling.
There's nothing worse than that. That's right, Butter. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's devastating to feel that way. And way too many people do. Mm-hmm. And we all have that.
Sure.
Shadow, which at some point we might talk about.
We might.
What the hell that means.
Right, we might. Mm. So your ego's formed, let's say the cornerstone is formed 0 to 3 or 4, 5, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. Persona's also being built, mm-hmm. and then all the way to 8, 9, mm-hmm. 10 years old.
Yep.
So the mask does it have something to do with personality, mm-hmm. the word?
Yeah, exactly.
So the mask that we formed to protect ourselves from feeling ashamed, which feels so horrible.
Yes, nothing worse.
So this mask that we built to not feel that horrible feeling, is that mask our personality?
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yep.
Yep. And how we go around in the world.
Yep.
Yep. Protected from feeling ashamed.
Yep. The agreements we've made, which are basically unconscious, we don't sit around thinking, now, how am I going to be? It's more of a adaptation to the culture in which I'm born, both in a family sense culture and a larger, broader sense, the culture you're literally born into. It's a negotiation with the input a child is getting and the way it's delivered to create some form of presentation which seems to be positively reinforced rather than negatively reinforced, with the exception of sociopaths who want to have negative reinforcement. But that's another story. People come to mind. Mm-hmm. So the rigors of negotiating the generating of one's personal sense of identity / reality is so remarkably complex and challenging that I have great compassion for parents who are doing their best to do well with their child without really understanding any of this. They just want a healthy, good daughter or son. And if we could only just get out of the way, it would be a lot better than imposing our own unfinished business as some sort of charter for our children's identity.
When people come to you behind the blue door, when they come to your office with a big ego, right? When they come to you, it's really their personality that's walking in the door. And your work is to help them understand this mask, or is everyone's mask different?
Absolutely. Well, it's funny. It's ironic. I don't know if it's funny, but big ego means that you have a wounded ego. There is absolutely no psychological reason to have a big ego other than to compensate for a feeling of back to inadequacy. But it's a little deeper than that. It's like, if you were born without a kidney, the whole system is compensating constantly if you are ungrounded without that bedrock ego to build on. So when they come in with a big ego, it's really they're coming in with an oversized persona. They're more than likely having a very wounded, cracked, unstable ego. And so the persona is trying to compensate.
Yeah. And what kind of work or what kind of tasks can help? Is there any way to patch up the ego's foundation a little? Or
not so much.
No. You got it. You're a cornerstone.
Yep.
You're a unique cornerstone.
Yep. And maybe individuals will be able to grasp what I'm talking about here. That's one of the main functions as a therapist / mentor is to teach. And so resources will be given, based on our conversation, whether it be books, and how I roll my practice, reading and journaling, and doing specific tasks that I assign to identify, as I identify what needs to be faced, assigning a task that then they're held accountable for and build on. That's how we roll in the practice. But, the whole idea of narcissism, which is kind of another popular word in our society these days, but narcissism is an attempt, however, be it unconscious, to create some foundation. But as the myth goes, Narcissus was transfixed with his reflection in the water, thinking, oh my, what a handsome man I am. So narcissism is a feeble compensation for not having a solid ego. So narcissism is a part of the persona challenge and is very difficult to affect.
And I would guess most of the trouble people bring to the Blue Door is a persona-related
That's right.
challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just introducing what we're talking about to an individual who's been stumbling around and trying to find help or trying to come to some sense of understanding of themselves without a playbook.
Mm-hmm.
So many ways we can go. Where I went right there was, therapy as a whole business and how corrupt and awful all that is. But let's say through the swamp, somebody gets a handhold and it's on the Blue Door and they come through, then we have an opportunity to teach and see if the individual is willing to rise to the occasion of studying themselves rather than the option, which is the popular option, having a therapist or psychologist help them manage their symptoms. I just want to feel better, Doc. What we got?
Right. And I feel better after talking.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see you next week.
Mm-hmm. Which is wonderful.
Yeah.
The effect of talking is not to be underestimated. Mm-hmm. Sitting quietly in sacred space of a protected environment on Main Street in Bozeman with the door closed and being vulnerable. I mean, I sit this close to people I talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no desk in between. There's nothing in between. Mm-hmm. That intimate encounter is in itself medicine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And in my practice, now as an elder in our community, I'm very selective of who I see. It's not an open invitation, although it's mostly available to anybody who wants to come to deal with me. I guess that's actually what I was trying to say. I'm dealing with you, but you got to deal with me. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty selective, and people who come into my practice are ready to do the work and understand my reputation, which has a lot to do with, well, it has its own shadow, but my reputation as a cognitive, kind of using our intellect to understand the mystery we're experiencing. I'm not opposed to, the therapeutic effect of sharing emotion. There's hardly a session that goes by without me or the other person shedding some tears, It's not dry. But it's also not indulging in emotion.
And when the work starts behind the Blue Door, I've heard you reference vessels, which makes me think of alchemy. It's so alchemical behind the blue door. And the vessel for one journey being that cornerstone ego, and the vessel for another journey being persona, the mask. What's the next? Where does it go?
Well, that's the whole point. Where does it go? And it goes to where it's always been, which is to help an individual understand their character, which to me is the most sacred aspect of the work I do, is to teach an individual about their unique character, in the language of my mentor, their unique genius. Their, in the Platonic mythology, their daemon, and return to something that's always been there, which is that unique nature, which we understand is independent of your parents or how you've been socialized or the culture you're raised in. And that essence of the human psyche, that deeply natural, shall we say, no effort required, genius is what my practice endeavors to excavate and teach about embracing that and jettisoning the persona. It's done its work. It was trying like crazy to keep you sane. It's exhausted. So why don't we understand the next dimension of what it means to be fully human, and that is to embrace what's always been there, and that is your unique character.
And you mentioned your mentor, James Hillman, calling it your genius, your unique character.
Yep. Your unique genius, your character, your daemon.
People come to the blue door wearing this mask, this persona, and they're tired. You said something about they're tired, or it's done its job.
Right.
And it's done its job for 20 years.
Right.
30 years or... So people are kind of tired of their persona, even if they don't know.
Right. So that's where the vehicle, and although you refer to it as being alchemical, which everything in my practice in some ways is, and that's another story, but I prefer the vehicle to be a mode, a vessel of transportation through life. Vessel in that sense. So the ego would be the anchor of that vessel. The persona is one's best chance or best attempt at managing and constructing something that can be accepted as normal. Because that's one of the most frequently asked questions or sufferings is, I just want to be normal. And I go, well, let's address that right now. Good luck with that, because normal is sick. But the whole idea of persona and it being a vessel is that it would be like a rowboat, to navigate a lake, a pond, a canoe, or a rowboat. It's a great vessel for the waters you're in. But when you start to awaken or start to realize that that vessel is limited for the expansive experience of leaving the harbor, persona as harbor, persona as protection, into the vast ocean. As the classic line is, you're going to need a bigger boat. You're going to need a more trustworthy vessel to navigate the storms of life on the open sea.
And most people are navigating those storms in a rowboat.
Right. And knowing that that's not what they need, but not knowing what the alternatives are or how to get that other vessel.
What does the vessel of character look like?
Good question. It's unique to each of us, but the vessel of the character it's like when you find the right fit of a shoe, of a shirt, of a jacket, that fits me well. That's where we're wanting to get to have the courage to realize that what you have been wearing doesn't really fit, even though we get over-identified with our persona as who we are. But the vessel of character is intact from the start. We just were hoodwinked into living in the persona, little rowboat, while the character is in kind of dry dock, just going, hey, check me out. Come on board. Let's go into the vast mystery of life with a vessel that aligns with your character.
How about if I ask you, what kind of dreams does the persona present?
Yeah. I don't know if we can generalize, but thematically, the persona shows up in dream time as this character that is stalking, as you said, that is prowling, that is trying to get somewhere, that forgot what they were doing, couldn't find where they were going, some sort of lostness, some sort of character in the dream that is looking for something and they don't even know what it is. And that image of the persona in dreams is typically a shadowy kind of character. He or she shows up in ways that have to do with not a sincere, that would be putting something on it, attempt to find something. As simply put. Not sure what, but I keep looking for it. And I get lost in the maze, or I get lost in a struggle, or the shadow character of the persona overrides me, defeats me. So the persona shows up in the dream time as this character that in some ways, I'll just generalize it, is lost.
And the client who's coming and learning about his or her persona, they're dreaming, the persona dreams are kind of pointing them to what their mask looks like. Or And then as movement happens, what does a character dream? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's not about kind of the hero story, which is its own archetypal mythology that Joseph Campbell certainly helped us understand. The character piece reveals itself as some form of stability. That might be a structure, it might be a relationship, it might be a journey, but the character in Dreamtime has a luminescence, which if we go back to my way of seeing dreams, the copper, silver, and gold, is the gold dream. Very brief, very clear, very bright. We have a sense of orientation when we have those dreams. And that's very satisfying, very meaningful.
And rare.
And rare, as gold is.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say the start is to uncover the quality of the cornerstone, or at some point you have to see the cornerstone of your story.
Simply understand that. I don't know if we can see it, but just the principle of it.
Just understand the principle,
right.
Which is a revelation compared to you have to kill your ego, which is an impossible task. And everyone's chasing this story, death to the ego. I can't believe they use the word death, but...
Well, the Buddhist tradition is certainly strong about that being what we are meant to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So understood that that's critical in some existential playbook. That is true.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But for you and for Hillman and Jung, it's neutral.
Mm-hmm.
You can't kill it.
Mm-mm.
It's set in the corner.
Yep.
And then persona is the mask that we wear to not feel ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
And the move is from persona to character.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens with you behind the blue door.
Gods and goddesses willing?
Yes, with help from gods and goddesses. And what kind of, what's the work towards character? What kind of signs do you see along the way?
Well, it's to tame the persona. On Thursday I had 5 sessions, which is a full day, very full day. And 2 of those sessions were men in their 60s who have enormous personas, blustering about this and that and the other thing, and, telling me stories about this, that, and the other thing, which I think is important to hear, and I don't want to diminish. But it's like, dude, calm down. I'm not impressed with what you've done and how you've done it and what came to you in the last weeks in terms of income and deals. That's sweet. Good on you. But the bluster of that persona has to be quelled. And that's where my presence as a therapist, as a mentor, with my quietness of spirit and soul and presence, and the sanctity of my office behind the blue door, which is such a beautiful space in so many different ways, which I protect above all else, is the nature and quality of that private space. Simply being with me while I'm in that state and their bluster, just like some spring storm, starts to pass, and some capacity to self-reflect and introspect starts to come into the room. And that's where I pay particular attention when we get away from the accomplishment of the persona and have an opportunity by maybe a dream segment or some reflection or statement they've made about their time. I jump on that word. I'm really always being mindful of how people are talking and the words they are using. I'll jump on a word or a phrase, and that cracks open, shall we say, the conversation or the dialogue or the teaching about character.
I just imagined a crack in the mask.
Mm-hmm.
And with the crack,
mm-hmm.
then I can hear
mm-hmm.
a little differently.
At least while they're with me.
Mm-hmm.
That persona snaps right back when they get in their car on their cell phone making another deal or checking in on how the ranch is doing or X number of other variables. Mm-hmm. And, you know, my request to people leaving the Blue Door is don't get on your cell phone, don't drive away, take a walk. We covered a lot of territory. Just kind of allow that to sink in. Sometimes that happens, but usually not.
Mm-hmm. All my years of being close to you and people who've worked behind the Blue Door, there's a common theme of floating down the sidewalk. I mean, I probably heard from 30 people in my life about floating down that sidewalk after a session, you know?
Float on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. We've reached the end of another session in the Blue Door Playbook, a podcast for the soul, featuring archetypal psychotherapist Timothy Tate. Thanks for listening. I'm Putter Brown. Stay tuned for the next episode, where Timothy discusses our negotiation with spirit. The content in this podcast is strictly for informational and entertainment purposes only. If you are experiencing mental health symptoms, please contact a mental health provider in your community.